You're listening to Sports Talk with Travis DeBus, Dillon Hutton, and Cory Johnston, live from Political Dogs in the Glade Spring Town Square.
Come with me now. Come with me now. I'm gonna take you down. Come with me now. I'm gonna show you how. Come with me now. I'm gonna take you down.
All right, welcome to Political Dog, Town Square, Glade Springs. This is Sports Talk with Travis, Dillon, and Cory. We're glad to be here with you tonight. It's brought to you by Lowe's Home Improvement Warehouse and Political Dog. Big week so far for Hogo game day. We had a rare Monday night game last night. The Northwood Panthers losing to the George Wythe Rocky Maroons. We got Sports Talk tonight, and we got our Hogo game of the week that we'll talk a little bit more later on in the show coming up this Friday. So it's Stage 2 of our big week here.
Yeah, it's a three-part week here for us. Pretty busy week. Cory, we were at a good game last night. George Wythe traveled to Saltville to take on the Northwood Panthers.
Very good game last night, guys. We'll go ahead and go over a little bit of the stats. The final to that game last night, 35-6, George Wythe over Northwood. George Wythe ran the ball 34 times, 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. Their quarterback, Darius Moore, 4 for 4, 68 yards, and 2 scores. Trey Skeens, 24 carries, 160 yards, and a touchdown. And Phillips also ran the ball 11 times, 37 yards with a touchdown. Also put in a 15-yard reception there. Northwood as a team ran the ball 42 times, 184 yards, and a touchdown. Call was 0 for 2 passing the ball. Olinger, 13 carries, 50 yards, and a touchdown, although he didn't look 100% at all. Doan ran most of the carries, 17 carries, 84 yards. So mostly a one-sided game last night. I mean, that's the only way you can categorize it. I think a key drive was that first drive of the game that Northwood didn't score on. I think that really come back.
It reminded me a lot of the Marion game we did at the start of the year. Marion was driving down inside the red zone, and Marion wasn't able to score.
Yeah, I thought about this after I got home last night. You know, the game, you could probably argue, was lost at the coin toss. Once that George Wythe chose to defer to the second half, and then they were able to keep Northwood out of the end zone, that slow, grinded-out offense didn't play into their favor anymore. I don't have the exact numbers, but, you know, they didn't get too many possessions after that. And when they failed to punch the ball in, George Wythe drove down and scored in just a little over 2 minutes. It was hard. Northwood was playing catch-up the rest of the night.
Not to mention George Wythe scored right before halftime and made it 14-6, getting the ball after halftime too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. That score before the half really put them behind the 8 ball. Of course, George Wythe led 14-6 at the half after that late score at 15-yard touchdown pass with 13 seconds to go. Was definitely a huge hit to Northwood right there to be trailing. But they come out in the second half and got a stop right at the beginning of the half because George Wythe returned and got the ball there after they deferred to the second half. And they were able to get a stop, but they just couldn't make anything happen after that. Maroons went on to score 21 unanswered and get the win. They've really kicked the door back in on this Hoga-Higgy race.
I think we kind of have to mention, too, that not only did Olinger not look 100% on offense, he didn't play at all on defense, and I think that took a big hit on stopping Skeens and maybe stopping some of those jet sweeps that they run at George Wythe, too.
I'll tell you, they did a good job stopping some of that stuff early, but after that, they were just too much on the inside. They were getting some good gains inside with Monterique Phillips. He's a great back, too. You hear a lot about Skeens, but he takes a lot of pressure off Skeens.
And Northwood didn't exactly play real bad on defense. You know, they would hold George Wythe. George Wythe had to pick up a couple of key third downs throughout the night, but they could never stop the big play. Just seems like George Wythe could dial up the big play anytime they wanted. They would hit it, and that was pretty much the story of the night.
Yep, and that was just a big game there, a big win for George Wythe. We'll talk about the other game that occurred last night, the Chilhowie and Rural Retreat game. Cory, you got some stats from that one?
I don't have any stats from that one. We did have a final. I think the final was 41-13, 41-19 Rural Retreat.
Yeah,
so.
I don't think there's been an article written about that yet, so we'll see how that happens. But Chilhowie, of course, 1-6, 0-3 in the district after winning the Hoga-Higgy last year. definitely a big turnaround, and they've taken a couple of steps back this year.
And Roll Retreat, that improves their record to 4-3. So they've got a pretty good season going on with their first-year head coach up there. The Indians keep on rolling, and here coming up in the last couple of weeks, they've got a bye this week, and then they take on Holston at Northwood and George Wythe. So you think they'll at least pick up the win against Holston. Way Northwood looked last night. Is it possible Roll Retreat could pick up a win over Northwood also?
Yeah, we'll just have to see how that works out. A lot will hinge, I feel like, on Blake Olinger's status through the rest of the year. But
a point that we made last week, too, that I think needs to be mentioned again. The two teams that played for the Hoga-Higgy Championship last year are all but eliminated from playoff contention this year, Holston and Chilhowie.
Yeah, I'm not sure how far Chilhowie's fell after losing again, but 1-6 and 0-6 Holston, that doesn't bode well for either Chilhowie or Holston. They'll have to have dramatic turnarounds to come back and make it to the playoffs here in 2014. But with that, let's go to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back, talk a little bit more about the Hoga-Higgy. Then after that, we'll talk about college football. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Sports Talk with Travis the Bus and Dillon Hutton. They'll be talking Hogo sports and college sports here on the Hoga-Higgy Network. They would like to thank their sponsors, starting off with Appalachian Plastics, Big M Farm Service, Serber & Son, Carter's Pharmacy, Glade Pharmacy, Abingdon Equipment, Lowe's, never stop improving. And last but not least, Political Dogs.
Welcome back to Sports Talk. We've already broke down the George Wythe Northwood game from last week. This is Dillon Hunt along with Travis DeBus, Cory Johnson, and Andy Brown here from Political Dogs in Glade Spring, Virginia. We'll go ahead and talk about the other results from last week in the Hoga-Higgy. We go back to Friday night, the only Hoga-Higgy game that was played actually on Friday. Patrick Henry went to Damascus and laid the wood down on Holston. Patrick Henry 34, Holston 6. So Patrick Henry got their first win over Holston since 2008. The Rebels are 2-0 for the first time in a long time, in first place in the Hoga-Higgy for the first time since 1997. So definitely a good start for the Rebels in Hogo play. George Wythe, of course, defeated Northwood 35-6. Roll Retreat defeated Chilhowie 41-19 in a pretty surprising fashion, in my opinion. Roll Retreat's beaten the Warriors 3 years in a row. And what is the most surprising thing from the other two games? Talk about P.H. Holston and Roll Retreat Chilhowie. What do you feel like the most surprising thing, Travis?
Well, Patrick Henry, they had that balanced offensive attack in. They did a very good job. The score was pretty much established there at the end of the third quarter. They took their foot off the gas pedal and didn't hang many more after that. But I am surprised Holston didn't manage to score many points. Early in the season, Holston was able to. They were getting beat, but they were in those games early, especially against Ryco, Twin Springs. They were able to score a lot of points, but they just haven't been able to do that in the last couple of weeks. And I thought they would against Patrick Henry, but they still weren't able to.
I don't know. I think we're still, all three of us are still surprised about Chilhowie's season. We all three picked Chilhowie yesterday. Obviously, it didn't pan out that way. But I think it's just kind of like a failure to launch for Chilhowie. They didn't start very well, and they just haven't found their true identity yet. I'm still surprised that they haven't put something together yet.
Yeah, there's issues right now in Chilhowie. I'm not sure if they'll get them fixed this year, but they had a lot of drop off at the running back position. Buddy Brooks graduated, so there's a few players there offensively that they are missing as far as from the offensive side of the ball. And the way they like to run the ball, it's really detrimental to them. Let's go ahead and look at the Hoga-Higgy standings. At number one in the Hoga-Higgy is the Patrick Henry Rebels. They're 4-2, 2-0 in the Hogo. And number 2, Northwood. They're 6-1, 2-1. Marion, of course, is number 3, 5-1, 4-1. George Wythe, number 4, 3-3, 1-1. Rural Retreats in 5th place, 4-3, 1-2. Chilhowie 6th, 1-6, 0-3. And then Holston, who is 0-6 and 0-2. Guys, we have a log jam up here at the top. We've got Patrick Henry 2-0. If they win this week, we can go ahead and say that they could do something here that they haven't done in a long time. They have Marion, then they got to travel to George Wythe. Then after that, they have Chilhowie and Northwood at home. So there's definitely some chances here for the Rebels, especially if they can play good against Marion. I feel like they have a fighting chance here this season. This is a PH team that has a lot of confidence, more than any team I've seen them have in a long time. Defensively is where it's at. I talked to Coach Burke and Coach Palmer right there during halftime yesterday at the game, and they just felt confident in their defense, and that's something they've been lacking so far in Coach Palmer's reign here at Patrick Henry.
Well, the meat of their schedule is still in front of them. Of course, they got that big game this week against Marion. They followed that up with George Wythe. Probably a little bit easier game there against Chilhowie, and we're not sure that Northwood game's probably going to be pretty tough too. So we'll find out really quick whether Patrick Henry's for real or not. They've had that, like we hit on a minute ago, that balanced offensive attack that they found. The defense is playing really good. But you still got to look back. They lost to Tommy Walker. They lost to John Battle. Those are two teams that aren't very good. And they made the big comeback against Battle, but golly, not being able to take care of the ball and take care of business got themselves in a big hole. So I guess how good are they really? I mean, the win over Rural Retreat was big. It looks like Rural Retreat shaking out to be about a middle-of-the-pack team. So we'll see. Friday night's definitely be a big test. Weather's going to be nice. They're going to be at home, and they
don't say that.
That's right. That's right. I'm not very good with the weather.
So
the weather's going to be terrible Friday night.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, that'll work. Yeah, so PH, of course, is at the top. What I was saying is there's a potential log jam. If Patrick Henry gets beat on Friday, we've got all these one-loss teams.
Now, this is something we need to check with Travis Terry on. I'm not sure if I'm correct on this, but the tie break for the Hoagahigi, if there is one, is total wins and losses. So what I said last night, that if all three of the teams, Northwood, Marion, and George Wythe, went undefeated the rest of the season, they would split the Hogo title. If I'm right, by looking at recent years, it's their overall wins and losses that would change it. So if they all three went undefeated, Northwood actually still wins the Hoagahigi. If they were to go undefeated, they would win because they have the tiebreaker
with Marion.
Marion's the only other one-loss team right now.
Yeah, that's right. So Northwood, if they did go undefeated.
If that's correct. Now, that's something we may want to get with Travis Terry on and make sure that that's how the tie break works. But if that is how it works, then Northwood would still win the outright Hoagahigi championship.
Yeah, we'll just have to check on that. Let's go ahead and talk about who do you feel like the player of the game was from last night, Travis?
Well, it was definitely Trey Skeens. I mean, the guy was he was so fast, so shifty. He could get out on the edge in a hurry, and even when he ran the ball up the middle, Northwood, 3 or 4 guys would get their hands on him. He would just slip right through. He was definitely a player of the game. But
I really like that they used him and Monterique Phillips together. They'd run that sort of counter. They'd bring Monterique on that jet sweep. They'd mix it up. Then they'd bring it inside with Trey Skeens, and they'd fake it.
I think you saw a system with a change of pace back there. I mean, with Monterique Phillips, the change of pace was he has so much more burst speed than Trey Skeens. I still think Trey Skeens was player of the game last night. Obviously, 24 carries, 160 yards, and a score. That's hard to argue with any other stat that anybody else put up. I mean, I guess you could throw Darius Moore out there. He's 4 for 4 passing.
He passed, and it really, the way I forgot to mention this about that game, is whenever they came out there with their first possession backed up against the end zone, against in their own territory back there, second down, Darius Moore throws it up to the 50-yard line. If they miss that opportunity, they're looking at a third down on the 9-yard line. Stuff like that, plays that he made throughout the game, and that kept Northwood, whenever George Wythe came out and threw that early in the ball game, I think that sort of put Northwood on their toes.
I thought that was
Moore. He hit that big pass in the shadow of their own goalpost. He didn't throw it a lot, but that particular pass, he stood in the pocket and threw the ball. On his other 3 completions, he rolled out, so he can throw it from wherever. He's good on the run or sitting back in the pocket and delivering the strike.
I think that was a real statement early for George Wythe, too. I mean, they ran down the field 2 minutes, 35 seconds. And
after an 8-minute Northwood drive.
And that resulted in no points at all. So I think with that statement, they not only could throw the ball, they tried to run the middle, and when they couldn't, they figured out that the outside would work and busted off the 50-yard run from Skeens early, too.
Well, we talked about it, how efficient Northwood's offense had been up to that point. If you're going to run the ball and run 8 minutes off the clock, you better be getting points out of it, because if not, you're just limited in possessions, and you're still scoreless.
If you look at the stats, Northwood's offense was efficient as far as the yards gained.
But, I mean,
and the
finishing
plays,
drives.
You got to, and it's without the points. The offense isn't efficient. We had some comments today on our Facebook page about how they had 2 700 yards rushers. Yards don't win games.
That wasn't the 700-yard Blake Olinger there, and you won't see him for the rest of the season. I hate to tell Northwood fans that, but, I mean, he's giving it all he's got with what he has.
Well, their offense is definitely not it's been effective in the games that they've won. If you can get out, even last night, if they come down and hung that first score on the board, maybe it was different. Maybe you make George Wythe play from behind and see how they handle it. But Northwood cannot play from behind the way that they run their offense. They are going to have to make some changes.
Yeah, when they go down
mad
2
and
scores.
saying, well, don't bash them and this, that, and everything else. But they proved last night they were one-dimensional. When it got desperate and they had to throw the ball, they still didn't throw it. They threw
the ball, 2 times?
Twice. And I think we were a little surprised last night that they didn't make any defensive changes. They stuck with the same scheme. They really didn't change anything on defense to slow that George Wythe offense down. They made 2 stops in the second half. One was a fumble, one was a turnover. But
by the time the fumble happened, the
game's over.
The way their offense was doing. Once they got the fumble, they ran the ball 2 straight times and threw it on 3rd down.
With what Travis said with the one-dimensional, you almost wonder if they're one-dimensional on defense too. Did they have any changes there that they even could have made on defense other than personnel changes? I'm not so sure. But I think we did confirm that Northwood's passing game may not exist at all. And even in a situation where you would think they needed a passing game, it's just not there.
No, that's true. Let's go ahead and jump to the Marion PH game this week. That was some good points there on the matchup that occurred last night. Let's go ahead and move forward and talk about Friday's game. Patrick Henry and Marion facing off in Emory. Let's go ahead and do a comparison chart here. Let's all 3 give our ideas of which team has the true advantage in this facet of the game, starting with offense. Cory, you go ahead and go first, and whatever the majority is, we'll check it off.
From what I've seen this year, I'd give the offensive to Marion. I think they've got a lot of playmakers back there. They run the ball efficiently, and as far as a whole offensive unit, I'd have to give that one to Marion, Travis.
Yeah, I agree. Hunter Leffler, he's looked pretty good the times we've seen him. They had the little hiccup there in the game against Marion, but they still moved the ball decent on offense. I think the edge goes to Marion.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you guys. I believe it's closer this year than in recent years. I believe Patrick Henry has the offense there. It just depends on how they use it on Friday night. They can come out in a lot of different ways. All right, let's move to the second facet of the game, defense. Cory? That's a tough one.
That's a real tough one, and I think both defenses are pretty close. And I may not pick one here. I may put a tie on this one because I think Patrick Henry's defense has really improved. They got a good linebacking core. We saw our player of the game last week was Grant Ramey, and I think he's a stud in that defense. But when you look at Marion's defense, I think their opponents are a little bit better, and it kind of makes you want to lean towards Marion. But I think both defenses are good, and I think we'll see both defenses on display Friday night. It just depends on how the offenses play.
Marion's defense has really stepped up since that loss against Northwood. They've held their opponents out of the end zone. They held Holston down. They didn't give up a whole lot of points to Tazewell. I believe they didn't give up hardly any points to Rural Retreat. So Marion's defense has played really well, but so has Patrick Henry's. Their defense has looked good too, but I'm still going to give the edge to Marion on this.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. It's close. Again, I think this game, if PH comes out with the right mindset, it can be a pretty close ball game. I think we'll just leave that up to a toss-up. Defense is even.
Well, here may be the question is, we may not know how good Marion's defense is. Their offense strikes so fast that the defense is not really put in a hole. So if Patrick Henry can get out on the board and make it a ball game and keep it a ball game late, we'll see if Marion's defense is for real.
So we've got Marion with an advantage of 1, which is offense. Let's go ahead and move to running backs. Which team's running back core has the true advantage in this football game? You got Sam Wagner on one side, and you can go ahead and you can throw Riley Blevins in because they do the jet sweeps with Riley, and a lot of the screens count. You would see them as a short run. But then you got PH on the other side, Andy Cuddy, Dakota Humphrey, all those guys.
We talked about earlier in the season about all these running backs in the Hoagahigi having 10 yards per carry averages, and we've slowly, game after game, seen those start to diminish. We talked about Stone Mullins and Nolan Ryan coming into Patrick Henry, and that one diminished. Both of those guys are under 10 now. But Marion's running back, Wagner, is still 11 yards per carry this far into the season. He's got 834 yards on 76 carries, and he's got 14 touchdowns. That's hard to argue with. Now, Humphreys obviously has had a good year too, 57 carries, 541 yards, just under 10 a carry with 16 touchdowns. It's almost a tie, but if I had to give it to somebody, I'd have to go with Wagner.
I'm going with Wagner for all the reasons that Cory mentioned, but also Wagner doesn't put the ball on the ground. He holds on to it, and fumbles have been a problem for Patrick Henry so far this season. So.
Well, yeah, I'm going to disagree here. We're talking about running back cores. Andy Cuddy, Dakota Humphrey complement each other very well. They do have a tendency to turn the ball over, but taking that out of the equation, they played well against Holston. They played well against Rural Retreat, being clean with the football. And if we want to talk about running games and not just running backs, Zach Wright can run the ball too pretty well and efficiently. I'm going to take the advantage and give it to Patrick Henry, but Marion, of course, wins that one 2-1. So Marion's got the advantage in the running game and in offense. Let's go ahead and jump quarterbacks. PH has to win this one to even be in it for our chart. So quarterbacks.
I'm gonna stick with Marion on this one too. Leffler, 10 touchdown passes this season. He'll be going up a tougher pass defense with Patrick Henry, but I'd have to stick with Leffler here.
I'm going right.
Because
he's multidimensional. He's efficient on offense, and he's smart. He runs the read option better than most quarterbacks in the district. There's a lot to Patrick Henry's offense. All the motions, they run a lot of different formations. They go that power set, which I like. They could just go in it and I think just bully some teams around, but they don't do it. They go pistol, they go shotgun. They've got weapons outside. Graydon Williams, he's got a huge target, 6'5" out there on the perimeter all by himself. It's a mismatch. I think PH right there in that QB position, with all the talent they have at wide receiver, they've got more talent overall than Marion does at wide receiver. You got Chandler Dixon, Riley Blevins for Marion at that position, some well-known names. Riley is possibly the best wide receiver in the Hoagahigi, but I'm talking about wide receiver cores in general. Patrick Henry has a lot of great wide receivers. What'd you say?
I thought we was talking about quarterback.
Well, I'm talking about things that complement the quarterback. You can be the best quarterback in the district, which, some teams end up having great quarterbacks. Look at Holston right now. Seth Thomas, in my opinion, is still one of the better quarterbacks in the district. Who's he have to throw it to? A quarterback's useless if you don't have wide receivers.
Well, there you go. I don't know which way to lean, but since Dillon signs the checks, I'm going with him.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about receiving cores, Blevins from Marion, 6 touchdown passes already this year. Garrison from Marion, 3 touchdown catches this year. I mean, that's
Hey,
that's
we
hard
can't
to
go by
argue with.
touchdown catches because
we-
Patrick Henry lobs it up to Graydon Williams,
But what we talked about earlier,
and then
it
they
don't
give
matter
it to
about
Humphrey.
yards.
Give it to Humphrey, let him charge it on in.
It doesn't matter about yards and catches if you ain't scoring points. I mean, that's a point we just made too. If you're not scoring points, it's not going to matter at the end of the day.
You're right. So PH won that advantage. Let's go to special teams. This is a close one. Wagner kicking extra points, and Graydon Williams made that 24-yarder. PH's kick returns have been pretty decent this year in the games that we've seen. We saw Humphrey have a good return against Rye Cove.
I think what you got to look at here more than just the special teams is some of the coaching decisions.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we saw Patrick Henry make some questionable decisions on special teams, especially with the onside.
Oh, well, you
kick
had the
against
onside that was
Georgia.
recovered that changed the game before that.
Right, but how big of a special teams move would it have been to pin roll retreat back when you've got all that momentum? And if it's not for the roll retreat fumble, we may be talking a totally different result in that roll retreat game.
But it didn't. It happened.
Well, Buchanan's got plenty of leg. Yeah, I'm with Cory. Kick it deep. Don't give them the ball at midfield. We can go back to look what special teams did to Northwood last night. They scored the touchdown, had the short kickoff. That's what led to the George West score at the end of the half. Special teams.
I'm
not sure. I can't pick one there.
I'll go with Patrick Henry.
going with Patrick Henry based on Graydon Williams, Alex Davenport, and Caleb Boyd on that kick return team.
I think it's the coaching. It's all on the coaching. It's some of the decisions are wrong on the special teams. On if they try the onside kicks.
Well, let's go back and talk about the onside before that. That was a well-executed onside by Patrick Henry. Well, let's forget about the one that happened after that, but let's talk about the one that happened
But
before
you can't
that.
forget
But
about
you
the
can't
one that
forget
happened
about it.
after
That's
that.
what-
But it didn't hurt
Wouldn't
them.
have fumbled the ball.
It could have.
But it
could
didn't.
have. Okay, but do you think the Marion team, if they get the ball at the 40-yard line, you don't think they're going to take advantage of it?
You don't think they might fumble? All right, so the advantage goes to – it's a tie, actually, between both teams, so maybe we'll have a close game. We haven't had very
Well, then
good
let's
luck.
talk about this. If it comes down to coaching, who's the better coach?
Cory?
Marion.
I'm tired of hearing Mark Palmer get second-guessed. Mark Palmer.
I didn't say I was second-guessing him. I second-guessed some of the special teams decisions.
I just wonder about Patrick Henry's coaching from a tactical standpoint. Seems like
Yeah,
they
sometimes there's some errors.
Right, yeah. I'm going to go with Marion. Seems like their coaching staff may understand the game just a little
Marion's
bit better.
got it by one. So that's pretty close right there. Hopefully we got a game that gets to the fourth quarter here in Emory. We haven't had a close game up to this point. What are you laughing about, Travis?
I don't know.
All right, let's go ahead and do the thing that everybody loves on Facebook.
We're not getting any more free hats.
The Hogahegie Power Rankings. Go ahead.
All right.
Who wants it first?
I'll go ahead. I've got Marion number 1, George With number 2, big win against Northwood last night. I've got Northwood number 3, Patrick Henry 4, Rural Retreat 5, Chilhowie 6, and Holston 7.
All right. You're going to be getting bad messages from Northwood tonight.
I already have.
I got Marion first. Got the George With Rocky Maroons second. Northwood Panthers third. Patrick Henry fourth. Roll Retreat is fifth. We're going to put, wait, who'd I forget? Oh, yeah. We got Chilhowie sixth.
You forgot Holston.
Seventh.
You know what's bad? We're getting flack from Saltville, but we've had Holston at the bottom of the Hogahegie since we started this thing.
How can they argue it? They
Chilhowie
haven't won a game
could.
all year.
All right, my Hogo Power ranking is a little bit different than you all. Marion at the top, George With in second place, Patrick Henry in third. We're going by momentum, and we're going by, Olinger's injured. Northwood's not as good. I've got Northwood at 4. Those boys are great. They've had a great season. I don't think people understand how big Blake Olinger plays a role in their offense. I'm tired of hearing it. Yes, you're a great team. Blake Olinger is a great back. He's hurt. He's not 100%. They're not the same. You could tell he was protecting his leg. I've got Northwood right there in fourth place, Rural Retreat fifth, Holston, or Chilhowie sixth, and Holston last.
Does Holston have a shot against Northwood?
No.
Then Northwood's 7-1. I mean, that's a whole lot better than Patrick Henry's 4-2.
I've said this before. I believe that we could take the group that's here eating at Political Dogs to Damascus and put them a game. So, with that, what a perfect
put me
bounce
out there.
back. What, Corey? Hey, I'm trying to take the heat off you. You get a lot from from Damascus.
Yeah, I do.
So, okay, but anyway, I understand what you mean. But what a good way to bounce back after a short week to play Holston. What other situation could work out even better having a home game against the worst team in the district?
Very favorable schedule for Northwood this week. Yeah, it's going to work out good for them.
I mean, it's true, right? Before we have any, okay. Games this week, Marion at Patrick Henry, Holston at Northwood, George Wythe at Chilhowie, and Roy Tree has a bye. Which one is the best, Corey?
I'm going to go with the one we're going to. I think the best game will be the Marion Patrick Henry game.
I agree. I think by far that's going to be hopefully, the most contested ball game. I believe Northwood rolls Holston and George Wythe probably rolls Chilhowie. So, yeah, hopefully that Marion
That
Patrick
Chilhowie game sort of has a trap feel to it, though. Like Chilhowie's, they've played bad, but they've got talent. They're just not finishing drives. But
I'm not sure. We're not sure what deal went on in that game last night. We didn't get a whole lot of updates on that as the night went on. But
let's be serious, though. The only game we really know the truth about is Rural Retreat because they have a bye. They can't lose. So they're sitting pretty right now as far as if they win a few more, they can really get themselves into the playoffs pretty handily.
Yeah, the next opponent up for them following their bye is Holston. So I think they would pick up a win there to get them to 5-3.
All right, with that, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back to talk college football right after this.
If you have any Hoga-Higgy related questions or any college football related questions in general, tweet us at Hogo Game Day. And we'll answer the questions right here or discuss the comments right here live on the show. You're listening to Sports Talk with Travis the Bus and Dillon Hutton. They'll be talking Hogo sports and college sports here on the Hoga-Higgy Network. They would like to thank their sponsors, starting off with Appalachian Plastics, Big M Farm Service, Serber & Son, Carter's Pharmacy, Blade Pharmacy, Abingdon Equipment, Lowe's, never stop improving, and last but not least, Political Dogs.
Welcome back to Sports Talk with Travis, Dillon, and Cory. We're here at Political Dog Town Square, Glade Springs. We want to mention to everybody the Political Dog Appetizer of the Week, the Career Politician, for $4.99. That's a basket of our special recipe Freedom of Information fries, covered with chili, cheese, and fried jalapenos. Now, they don't compete with those fried pickles, but still, if you come down here to the Political Dog, be sure you try out the Career Politician. We want to thank our sponsors here real quick, Lowe's Home Improvement Warehouse, and, of course, our host for tonight, Political Dog.
Yep, we want to thank Political Dogs for hosting us every Tuesday night. Got a big show next week with Embry and Henry football coach Kurt Newsom coming to join us here. We're actually starting an hour later, too. We're starting the show at 7 o'clock instead of 6 next week. So make sure you come check that out. It'll be fun with Embry and Henry coach Kurt Newsom. He's got his teams off to a hot start here in 2014. Let's go ahead and jump to college football news. The top 25 came out, and it's in a very Mississippi state of mind. Two teams in the top 3 from the state of Mississippi. State is number 1 after demolishing Auburn 38-23 in Starkville. Ole Miss number 3 in the nation after shutting Kenny Hill and the Aggies down in College Station. And there's a lot of off the field news going around right now. Todd Gurley suspended by Georgia indefinitely with that memorabilia signing incident, which we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. Florida loses a game in the Swamp to LSU 30-27, a game where it really looked like Will Muschamp was going to get a big win. Florida State looked unimpressive again, in my opinion, beating a 2-4 Syracuse team by only 18 points, 38-20. Those are some of the headlines here in college football going into Week 8.
Yeah, Florida State, I agree. They don't look very good right now. Of course, they got all these off-the-field issues going on with Jameis Winston, and that whole mess just seems to snowball a little bit more every day. They obviously don't care. I mean, they put him out there. They need him to win. We don't know how good of a team they are without him playing quarterback. I think it's going to be a big game this week between Florida State and Notre Dame. Pretty sure if Florida State loses that game, you can count the ACC out for getting one of those coveted playoff spots at the end of the year. And Notre Dame, of course, they struggled a little bit at times against North Carolina on Saturday, so this may not be it's going to be a good game, I think. Going back to the Gurley deal at Georgia, golly, this NCAA
crazy.
is a mess.
That's crazy. If you're gonna make money on the likeness of a player, then he should be getting something out of it. That's my opinion on it. I mean, if you want to totally take the likeness out of the game, then when you go to football games on Saturday, you can put 00 on all the jerseys and sell those and see how many you sell. Because if it's not for the number on the jersey, you don't sell the jersey. And if it's not for the player wearing the jersey, then we don't even have an argument.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, it's his autograph.
Right.
You know, it's his signature. It
likeness.
doesn't belong to anybody else. It's his personal autograph. If he wants to sign something for $8, $12, $15, $100, I don't care. You think back to the A.J. Green deal, he sold his jersey. That was
to another player, too.
That was his jersey that they gave him as part of his bowl perks. You know, they gave him that jersey. If he wants to sell it, hey, if I want to sell the shirt off my back, I'd have the right to.
I think what's crazy is we're totally out of line with what's important here. Okay? We got a kid that's suspended indefinitely for signing autographs and getting paid for it.
Maybe.
Yet,
They're not even
it's not even proofed yet. But we've got guys who have, like the Jameis Winston incident, we've got guys that have been suspended 1 game for a sexual assault charge. The priorities are out of order here.
Well, there's the opposite spectrum here. You could say that the NCAA hasn't done anything about Gurley. They're investigating. They didn't penalize him. Georgia is the team that did it. They invoked the sanction there, not letting him participate, and especially a big weekend in a SEC East game against Missouri, which a lot of people didn't have a lot of faith in Georgia. Of course, they shut out Missouri. But you can handle these situations 2 different ways. You can wait it off like Florida State seems to do everything that happens, or you can take it into your own hands. There's 2 different ways to do it, because if you let Gurley play and then find out a little later on the line that he did something, let's say Georgia won the rest of the way, won the SEC, made it to the national championship, won it. This is just in a fake world. But let's just say that happens. Let's just say that happens and they find Gurley guilty of it. They can strip everything they've done away. Georgia is doing the right thing, in my opinion, by just letting him sit. You got a great running back there in Chubb, but there's 2 different ways you can handle situations like that.
I guess if you're Gurley, too, I mean, I know he wants to play, but, hey, just sit back. You're not going to get hurt while you're not playing. You already know you're going to be playing at the next level, so just sit back and enjoy the rest of your season, I guess.
All right, go ahead and call out our top 10 in college football.
All right, in the polls this week, number 1 is Mississippi State. They leapfrogged the Florida State Seminoles, who fall to number 2. Ole Miss Rebels are there at 3. The Baylor Bears coming off that big shootout win over TCU. What a crazy end to that ball game. They're number 4. The Notre Dame Fighting Golden Domers are there in 5th. Auburn War Eagle settles in at 6th. Alabama Crimson Tide at 7. Michigan State Old Sparty slides back in there at number 8. Number 9, the Oregon Ducks, and rounding out the top 10 team we're talking about, the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and mention some surprises from last week in college football, Corey.
The first one that we'll talk about, Auburn. Pretty sloppy early in the first half there. Had 2 fumbles, really 3. The kickoff that they fumbled and recovered.
Well, that was at the end. So
yeah, so I don't know. I think we all thought it'd been a little bit better game.
Yeah, but the thing about Auburn, we don't really know how good they really were. It was one of
That's
their
true.
bigger games.
And
up
they've
to
got
this
the
point.
toughest part of their schedule still to come, too. It doesn't get any easier for Auburn.
Yeah, they got Ole Miss in about 3 weeks. I'm sure they get Alabama, of course, the last week of the year. So we'll see how that works.
Another surprise, Arizona losing to USC. Arizona got that big win over Oregon the week before, and we thought Rich Rod and his boys were gonna make some noise in the Pac-12 race, and well, they stuck around a week, I guess.
Now everybody in the Pac-12's lost now.
Yep.
So that was their.
I think that's a classic hangover game. Big win against
home.
Oregon. Probably didn't prepare very well against USC. We've seen it already this season.
And then let's go to the third surprise from last week.
That's my biggest. Georgia shutting out Missouri without Gurley. I wouldn't have thought that. I actually almost called you to change my pick because I picked Georgia on the show last week, and I was going to call you once Gurley got suspended and totally changed. But the more I looked at it, maybe Georgia can pull this one out. I never would have thought it ended the way it did.
Well, you should have known Georgia was going to win. I picked Mizzou.
Yeah, Travis, that's all right, buddy. All right, let's move on to, well, I guess we need to go ahead and do our top 4 playoff teams. Corey, you and Travis just do this for the sake of time.
Do you have yours, Travis?
Yeah, I think if I had to pick right now, I think your 4 teams are going to be in. I think it's going to be Mississippi State. Even though I know Corey's not going to like this one, I think Baylor gets in.
Nope.
I think Michigan State and Notre Dame.
Okay. I've got all of those except for Baylor.
Why you don't show Baylor no love, man?
I just don't. They struggled with TCU. I'm not sure TCU's the premier team.
Hey,
right
it doesn't
now.
matter if you give up 99 points if you score 100.
I just think when they hit a solid defense this year, if they play one, because you know why I don't like Baylor.
In the Big 12.
I mean that's the whole point. I don't like Baylor. They don't play anybody. That's why I don't like them. But if they were to hit a defense, maybe in Oklahoma, I don't know. I don't think they would win. I think that's what they bank on is that offense because they have no defense. I mean, it was a 61-58 ball game, and there was no overtimes. So I'm just still not sold.
Well, they had some defense at the end of that game, though. There were 3 straight drives there that TCU couldn't do anything.
Right, and that's the only 3 drives in the whole game.
That's
TCU
all they
couldn't
needed.
do anything.
Put Baylor in the playoff.
No, I can't agree with you. Sorry.
That's all right. Hey, if we all agreed, that'd be boring.
That is true.
All right, let's go ahead and do this. It's a little game. I guess it's really a game.
Wait, did you pick yours?
No. I hadn't really thought about mine.
Well, just pick the top 4 SEC schools. I mean, we know
Mississippi
that's
State,
on
Ole
tape.
Miss, Auburn, and Alabama.
There you go.
No, it's
I'm
not
just
like
kidding.
we do this show every Tuesday or anything.
I know. Mississippi State, and I think I'll put Baylor in there.
Of course
Notre
you will.
Dame, because they don't play anybody, and they get respect for no reason.
They're getting ready to play the number 2 team in the nation.
The number 2 team in the nation.
I'm not sold on them either. But
Yeah. So,
Hey, they are they're the defending national champion until somebody knocks them off. I mean, they're still your national champ.
till
Notre
this
Dame's playing
Saturday.
them.
Till this Saturday. All right, yep. So
Oh,
I don't think I listed my
You
top
won't
4.
even be able to watch through the tears in your eyes after Tennessee lays it on Ole Miss Saturday. You won't be able to see what's going on in that Notre Dame game.
Oh, I
Hey,
know.
speaking of Tennessee Ole Miss, did you see what we did to your computer?
Yep.
Okay.
I
just wanna
changed it, too.
Okay.
They changed the background on my computer, too.
That was
Tennessee.
that was all Andy Brown.
Oh, I know. The head man. All right. Let's move on here. Georgia or Oregon. Who do you have going? If the season ended today, what team has impressed you the most and why? you go first with this one, and I'll get Cory with the next matchup.
Oh,
This
goodness.
is the teams that are out right now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Georgia looked impressive even without Gurley. That's the
They did, and I think Georgia definitely plays in the tougher conference. I don't give the SEC much love or all the love like the rest of you guys do, but I believe they're definitely better than the Pac-12 out there that Oregon gets to fly around in. So I'm gonna give that edge to Georgia.
That's
go
tough.
ahead. Let's move for the sake of time. Go ahead and say that real quick.
That's a tough one because Georgia had a very questionable loss now to South Carolina. And if we look at Oregon's loss was to Arizona, which lost to USC, but I think it was a more quality loss. South Carolina
But it was
tanked.
Yeah.
That's true. Georgia almost lost to Tennessee. And if you look at the opponents that they played and how they played them and how they beat them, I mean, yeah, they might have beat Missouri, but are we all sold on Missouri? Missouri's quality win was South Carolina.
Well, any SEC East win right now is going to be sort of muttered.
Right.
And when the best team in the conference is Kentucky in the East.
That's true. I don't know. That's tough, Travis.
All right, let's
I'd
move
be
on to the
split on
next
that
one. Number 6 Auburn or number 8 Michigan State. I mean, number 6 Auburn, 8 Michigan State.
I'd
Go ahead.
have to go with Auburn on this one because of the conference they play in. Michigan State. I mean, you could go either way on that one too, but Auburn still has the toughest part of their schedule left. So I mean,
Yeah, and when you look at Michigan State, that loss to Oregon after being up the way they were. Travis, what do you think about that one?
I think I'm going to lean with Michigan State on this one. The Big Ten's definitely not as good.
You've been on that
as
Michigan State bandwagon. Though.
I have. I think the Big Ten's they're okay at the top. Okay, I don't think they're quite as bad. I think Ohio State has turned it around since that opening loss to Virginia Tech. They played pretty good. It's going to be a big game between them and Michigan State. But I'm going to go with Michigan State because, just like you guys said, we don't really know what Auburn's got right now.
I guess my only other point on that whole argument is Auburn's only loss is to the number 1 team in the country.
You're right. In Starkville, too. We'll just have to see. Number 7, Alabama, or number 5, Notre Dame. Bama has not looked good at all this year. Notre Dame, we'll see Saturday, I guess. I mean, it depends on how some people see the number 2 team in the country.
Well, the question I got right now is, so Alabama struggled against Arkansas. How come we're so high on every other team in the SEC?
That's it.
But we're anti-Alabama because they went and struggled. Oh, well, Alabama's no good.
They've got issues offensively.
If Ole Miss goes and struggles with Vanderbilt, oh, well, Vanderbilt's pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean, come on.
No.
We're either all SEC or we're no SEC.
Another point that he's making there, we talked about how Florida struggled with Kentucky. Kentucky's leading the East.
Florida beat Kentucky, though.
Right, but they struggled. That's our whole point.
Yeah.
They struggled.
We talked
with
about
Kentucky,
that a few weeks ago.
and everybody looks back and says, "Oh, Kentucky's not that great of a team." They're leading the East. Obviously, they're a decent team. And do we really know anything about Arkansas?
Nope. But Arkansas, the way their offense is, they're going to pound it out with you. It's going to be a good matchup to see Arkansas. They've been in games in the fourth quarter. They had Bama right on the ropes.
I would like to see the outcomes of the games this weekend before we pick that one. Because if Notre Dame knocks off Florida State, that's their quality win. That
For the
gets
year.
them in for me. I don't know the rest of their schedule.
Oh, that's what I mean. That's their quality.
Yeah.
win.
Yeah. It would be. It'd be the whole year.
It's got to be. All
Well,
right.
I mean, when you're Notre Dame, all you got to do is be Notre Dame. You run the table, you're in, and
That's it.
This is really their last big hurdle to do that. Of course, I guess they got USC still coming up, but
I think that's something we need to mention too. You know, the NCAA regulates all these things, but yet they let some of these teams still be independent, no conferences. They don't have any conference championships, but they do that independent bowl bid.
Well, I think, and if we're going to talk about conference championship, Big 12 needs a championship game.
Absolutely.
well, how can you demand that? Just like Cory's saying, though, when you still have independence. I mean,
Yeah.
they can't require it. I'm with you. I think we've had this conversation off there. I think we really need to have 4 major conferences. Let's just find out who these 64 teams are that really want to come out and play high-level football, who want to invest the money in it. Let's split them up in 4 different conferences, 16 teams in each conference, and let's go get it. Let's go. They got a 32-team playoff in Division III. How come we can't do it at the big
SEC
level?
president is retiring. I think I'll vote Travis to get in.
I think what we're looking at here is Notre Dame continues to be independent, but we talk about the revenue and how all these teams or conferences, all these conferences get signed to these deals, like the SEC network, the ACC network that runs through our local Fox affiliate. But yet Notre Dame has a deal with NBC Sports to carry all their games.
Well, Texas has got their own network. There's a Big 12 network, and then there's a Longhorn network.
But
24-hour burn orange.
The difference is Texas is in a conference. And I think every team, if you want to play Division I football, okay, Division I, the highest level of college football there is, you should have to be in a conference. No matter what conference it is, we've already seen that the conference location doesn't matter. Okay, we got people playing, Pac-12 in the Midwest. The SEC, Southeastern Conference, we got teams all over. Okay, to think that Texas A&M is in the southeast of the United States is crazy. It doesn't matter what conference you're in, but you got to be in a conference, I think.
I think so, and it's going to come to that. This 4-team playoff isn't going to last very long. People are going to go. Even this year, there's going to be a big uproar at the end of the season. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to discuss who coulda, woulda, shoulda, just like we did in the BCS years. But I think eventually there's so much money involved. There's so much. The bidding wars are out there to get live college football on, to get the NFL on. There's money to be made, and
it's as easy as 3 letters. What we've talked about all year. If the SEC doesn't get enough teams in, or any teams in for some reason, it'll get changed. I promise you that.
Well, I hope they don't get any teams in.
Well, it could
So we
happen.
can
Not
have
just
the
so
change.
it'll change it, just because I hate the SEC.
It'll happen. There's going to be that Egg Bowl at the end of the year. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, that's the top teams in the SEC. That's going to be an elimination game.
You mentioned this last night. Will both those teams be undefeated coming into the Egg Bowl?
We'll see.
And
Ole
if they are.
Ole Miss has favorable. They got Auburn at home. They got
Let me throw this out.
They got to go to LSU.
If we're talking about the college football playoff, and the 2 Mississippi teams come in to the Egg Bowl undefeated, one of them's going to lose, and one of them's not going to make the SEC championship game. Okay,
Is it a
they're
situation,
both in the West.
Is that what you're saying?
Okay, so say Ole Miss goes up and loses. Say Ole Miss beats Mississippi State, okay, in the Egg Bowl. They go up to the SEC championship and they lose.
To Georgia.
But the winner from the east side already has 3 losses. The SEC's not going to get an automatic bid in there. Georgia with 3 losses may be 15th in the country. You're going to have a ton of 1-loss teams. But then you've got a 2-loss Ole Miss SEC championship loser and a 1-loss Mississippi State team that's left out and a Georgia 9-3 SEC champion. Who do you put in there and how can you justify it? There's no way to justify that at all. Not any of those teams.
That's why you got to mandate that you have these conference championship games, just like you hit on, Dillon. The Big 12, they've got to get this game, even though they've only got 10 teams right now. Whatever, they can split them up, 5 in each.
Well, that's like what happened.
If we did 5 conferences, if we did the 5 power conferences on an 8-team playoff, if you win your conference you're in, it doesn't matter if you're unranked or not. If you win your conference championship in those 5 power conferences,
no matter your rank,
no matter where you're ranked,
you're in.
You automatically get that bid. If you're going to give a bid, it's just like any other playoff system. Okay, like say the NFL, the NFC has 4 divisions: East, West, North, and South. Okay, if you win your division, we've seen division winners that aren't even 500 teams. The NFC East was won a few years
Go to the NBA
years ago.
and look. Yeah.
By a 7-9 football team. But they win because there is an automatic bid. And until we get this set up in college football, we will never have the right system.
And let's look at the way it is now. Obviously, we may have a bunch of teams there. We only got, 6 undefeated teams left nationwide. How do you argue a team like Marshall that they don't get in? Don't they deserve at least a little bit of a look? I mean, they're playing Division I football. But a team loses early. Let's just throw it out there. Virginia Tech, they've lost 2 now, but let's say they had only lost that 1 game to East Carolina. They lose it, they're out. Second week of the season or third week of the season, you're out. Well, that's not good. They're not going to sell a whole lot of tickets like that.
No.
They got to think about what's good for the economies of all these schools that are participating. Let's make it to where everybody can make some money, and if the only way to do that is to expand these playoffs and get those automatic bids, and then open it up for some at-large bids to get in. Let's go with a 16-team pool.
I think what you do with the point I'm making, okay, with the 5 power conferences and the automatic bids, that will almost forestall your independents to get in a conference. Because like you said, all these independents, you lose 1 game, you're out. You're done. Because you got an unranked team winning the Big Ten that's going to get in ahead of you because of those automatic bids.
Either get in a conference or drop down and play
Division
FCS,
II football.
Yep.
And you know what? They've got a tournament too. They've been doing the playoff system for years, and guess what, boys? It works.
There's no denying that, that's for sure. But with that, let's go ahead and finish up the show here. Do our picks for the week here on your Saturday site. But before that, let's go to the local college games. Might as well mention this. Emory and Henry is now 5-0, 2-0 in the ODAC. For the first time since 1998, they went undefeated in 1998.
Yeah, that was before the Old Dominion Athletic Conference had their automatic bid into the Division III tournament. They actually missed the playoffs that year under Coach Wacker, but they went 10-0, didn't make it to the national tournament. That's no longer the case. As a matter of fact, at this point, Emory and Henry might be playing well enough, and the ODAC is probably strong enough. I seen a ranking on D3 football earlier this week that the ODAC is actually ranked. They've got 32 Division III conferences. ODAC right now is about the 7th toughest conference in the nation. So they've got a chance to get an at-large bid if they don't happen to win the ODAC. They're coming off a big 34-21 win on the road at Bridgewater. That score's not as close as it sounds. Bridgewater hung 2 scores in mop-up detail at the end of the game. It doesn't get any easier this week, though, because they travel to take on Hampton-Sydney. Hampton-Sydney ranked 25th in the nation. So it'll be a big chance for Emory and Henry to keep this thing going and get up to 6-0 and bring it back here for homecoming week. And we'll mention one more time, we got Coach Kurt Newsom coming here next Tuesday night, the show at 7 o'clock, so you'll want to come out and be a part of that.
Yeah,
Part of the big homecoming week festivities at Emory and Henry.
Yeah, Kurt Newsom, he was a former offensive line coach at Virginia Tech.
Right. And assistant head coach at James Madison, so he brings a lot of experience back to Emory and Henry.
And he's a Emory and Henry alum. So with that, let's jump into our Saturday slate. Starting off Thursday night, Virginia Tech, Travis's Hokies, and Cory's and Andy's. Man, that's a shoe. Y'all's Hokies travel to Pittsburgh to play the Panthers at 7:30.
Tech's had trouble out of Pitt even way back to the Big East days, especially going on the road to take on Pittsburgh, and especially against them on Thursday nights. But hey, I'm sold on my Hokies. They're young, but I think they've got a good chance. I'm gonna give them the win over the Panthers.
I think you'll agree with me when I say we've played better on the road.
Yeah.
All of our road games we've played better. I'm going with Tech too.
I'm picking Virginia Tech too. I think Brewer at quarterback, if he makes the right choices. I was talking to one of my friends the other day. He's a gunslinger. He's got the gunslinger mentality, but sometimes he tries to make throws that he's just not capable of making. Sometimes he makes some poor decisions, but that's part of it. You got to grow through that, and you picked him as your QB. You got to go with him. It's like Bo Wallace at Ole Miss. There's been bad Bo and good Bo. Right now it's been good Bo, but right now it's good Brewer, bad Brewer as far as Virginia Tech. If he plays good, they can take down big teams.
Big night, too. This is his first Thursday night start.
And he's got another Thursday night game coming up in Blacksburg for the Miami game.
Miami, yep.
That'll be a fun game. 12 o'clock on Saturday, number 4, Baylor at West Virginia. Trap game in Morgantown.
It could be. You never want to have to go to Couchtown and play those West Virginia Mountaineers. West Virginia's played good in their last couple of outings, but haven't been able to pull off the victories. But I think Baylor's too good. They're one of my playoff teams right now, so I'm going with Baylor.
I think it'll be a shootout. I've got Baylor, too. It might be closer, though. That's the way those Big 12 games are. They're pretty – whoever has the ball last. That's the way that West Virginia-Baylor games have been in recent years.
West Virginia.
Oh, you're going up. That's a good pick. I like that pick.
I may not pick Baylor the rest of the year. I don't know.
All right, 12 o'clock, number 14, Kansas State at number 11, Oklahoma.
Ooh, that's. Whew. I'm going Oklahoma.
Yeah, okay. That makes it easy for me. I'll take Kansas State.
I'm going K-State, too.
Y'all go ahead.
Bill Snyder, he's got them going. They'll get things going on the right track. 12:30 on ESPN3. Virginia at Duke. Pretty good game in the ACC. Virginia's defense is for real. Duke's coming off that big win at Georgia Tech.
I think that kind of propels them here. Virginia was good early. They've kind of slacked off as late. I'm going to go with Duke.
Yeah, Duke's streaking. They're playing really good right now, especially getting that win over Georgia Tech last week. I think the Blue Devils are hot, and I'm sticking with Cutcliffe and Duke.
Yeah, I'm taking Duke as well, just for Andy over there with the Duke hat. 3:30 on CBS, number 21, Texas A&M at number 7, Alabama. This game's not looking as good as it did at the start of the year, but Corey, who you got?
I'm going to go with Texas A&M. I think they'll go bounce back. They've lost 2 in a row here, and as we talked before, I don't think Alabama's as good as what we thought they were. Kenny Hill's got to kind of get the game plan back together for Texas A&M. I think they get it done, though.
I go back and look at what Travis said earlier. Who are we to really say Bama is bad? Teams, they still won one of those games. They played good against Ole Miss for 3 quarters. I'm picking Alabama and Tuscaloosa. I think they get back on track. I think Nick Saban will get this team back going. And, who's to say that Bama's really that bad? One loss, that shows how good Bama's been over the years. One loss, people saying the dynasty's done. Then the next week they only beat Arkansas by 1 point, but still they won the football game. Vanderbilt beat Charleston Southern by 1 point, but they're not getting as much talk as Alabama.
I'm going to go with Alabama. I believe they're going to win this one.
All right, next game up, number 8, Michigan State at Indiana, taking on the Hoosiers. I'm going to pick Michigan State. I'll make that easy.
Yeah, Sparty, no problem.
Yep.
Okay, that was quick. Rutgers at Ohio State, 3:30 on ABC.
Well, the Scarlet Knights picked up that big win over Michigan, which doesn't really look like that big of a deal now. So I don't think they're going to have anything for the Buckeyes. Let's go with Ohio State.
I'm taking Urban Meyer and the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I will too.
Pretty easy there. 4 o'clock, number 10, Georgia travels to Arkansas. It game's on the SEC Network.
I got Georgia.
I got Georgia.
Just for kicks, I'm going to take the Razorbacks.
I heard a woo pig suey. Number 4, at 4 o'clock, let's see, Oklahoma State at number 12, TCU. Pretty good game here on Fox Sports 1. Which means I probably won't watch it.
I don't know if TCU is going to be able to recover after what happened to them against Baylor last week. Give me the Cowboys.
I'm going to go with that, too. I'm going to go with Oklahoma State, too, mainly because they played Florida State well, but I think we're all still in that not sure how good Florida State is stage. But they played them well at the beginning of the season. I'm going to stick with Oklahoma State.
I'm going to differ from you guys. I think TCU gets the win after that, coming back home to Fort Worth. 7 o'clock, Tennessee at number 3, Ole Miss at Oxford. It's homecoming on ESPN.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get with the Vols, but you're pretty sure they're not going to be very good on the road. I'm going to take that Ole Miss easily in that one.
Yeah, me too. I think this could be a 25-point blowout.
Really? I see it as an Ole Miss win, but I think it could be a little bit closer. Tennessee shows up to ball games. They just haven't finished the game this year.
You got to look at something we've talked about already this season, that big game hangover. Ole Miss has knocked off 2 ranked opponents the last 2 weeks. Obviously, there wasn't no hangover last week.
Of course, everybody was thinking there was going to be a hangover heading.
Right. But this is a totally different ball game. We're talking about a Tennessee team that's not showed much promise this year. They did keep it close with Georgia. I'm still going with my blowout pick here.
I hope you're right. 7 o'clock, Missouri at Florida, ESPN2. I've got Missouri. I think Missouri squeaks it out on the road. I know Missouri didn't look good. I think they get back on Matty Mock at QB. They were just out of sync from the get-go there in Columbia against Georgia, but I've got them getting the win in the swamp. on Saturday.
Tough middle of the pack game there in the SEC East. I'm going to go with Florida, however, to win this one.
That'd be a big win.
I'm going to go with Florida, too.
All right, next game up.
I mean, let's face it. You just picked Missouri to try to justify that big win make that big win for Georgia look better.
7:30 on the SEC Network. A pretty big game for everybody in Lexington. Kentucky at LSU. I know LSU hasn't been great this year, but Leonard Fournette at running back looked pretty good against Florida. He was the SEC co-offensive freshman of the week, along with Nick Chubb. So I've got LSU. I think Les Miles gets the win at home. I think it might be close. I think Kentucky's got a real chance to prove to the West that maybe they are the team that everybody in the East is talking about.
Yeah, I think if this game were in Lexington, I would lean towards Kentucky a little bit, but being in Death Valley, I'm going to go with LSU.
Kentucky. I'm going upset.
Good pick.
I think they'll play well. How long has it been since you've seen South Carolina and LSU at the bottom of the SEC? I think Kentucky takes advantage of it. I don't think LSU and Les Miles are where they want to be at all, and I think it'll show. I'm going Kentucky.
8 o'clock, number 5, Notre Dame at number 2, Florida State. The game of the week, College Game Day will be there, ABC. And who you got?
Oh, man, this is a toss-up for me. I hope Florida State wins it, but I think Notre Dame's going to beat them. Give me the Golden Domers.
I'm going Notre Dame, too.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Notre Dame as well. I think Notre Dame can get it done. Everett Golson, I know turnovers have been a real issue with him up to this point in his return back at Notre Dame, but I think
I hate nothing more than a bunch of little leprechauns.
We're not very good when we all pick the same team. We
I know.
figured that out last night.
Yeah, we were 0 for 2 last night for Monday Night Football picks. Last game to pick here, number 23, Stanford, at number 17, Arizona State.
I'm going to take the Sun Devils in this one.
I will, too.
I'm going to pick Stanford just so we don't have all three. I think
There you
defense does it. Stanford gets the win. But with that, I guess that's all we have for tonight's show. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week. But make sure you come out Friday to Patrick Henry High School. We're starting the show 30 minutes later than usual because we want a crowd. We're going to start the show at 5:30 instead of 5. I believe that'll work out better as far as fans. We like the atmosphere when we started at 5:30 a little bit better because you have the teams coming out and all that. So with that, thank you for tuning in. We'll be here at Political Dogs next week. We'll, of course, we're going to start that one later, too. We're going to start that show at 7 o'clock because of the scheduling issues with Coach Newsom.
Yep, Coach Kurt Newsom going to be on our show next Tuesday night, so join us at 7 o'clock for Sports Talk with Travis, Dillon, and Cory, brought to you by Lowe's Home Improvement and Political Dog. Come on out to Political Dog here in Town Square. It kicks off homecoming week for Emory and Henry, and hopefully he'll be coming in here off of a big win over Hampton-Sydney.
Yeah, this is a big prove-it game coming up for Emory, but with that, from Dillon Hutton, Cory Johnston, Travis DeBusk, and Andy Brown, this is Sports Talk, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in.